In the last few days, people have been left in shock after Tamar suddenly disappeared from the public eye. She is someone who has always been open, expressive, and active, whether it's through her music, her shows, or even her social media. So when fans noticed that Tamar had completely gone silent and was avoiding any kind of spotlight, it immediately raised questions. Some began to wonder if something serious had happened behind the scenes. Others felt she might just be stepping away for personal reasons. But the mystery grew even bigger when whispers started spreading that her absence had everything to do with one particular night involving Mendecees. The story of that night has slowly become one of the most talked about subjects among fans and blogs, making everyone curious about what truly went down and why Tamar has chosen to distance herself so suddenly. That mysterious night is where everything seems to have started. Tamar had attended an exclusive event that was supposed to be a lighthearted gathering with close friends, music industry personalities, and a few familiar faces from reality television. On the surface, nothing about the evening seemed unusual at first. Guests were mingling, laughter filled the air, and people were enjoying themselves without any tension. But as the night went on, the atmosphere began to change. It was during this same evening that Mendecees, who had also been invited, made his way into the venue. At first, there was nothing alarming about his presence. He was seen chatting casually with a few people, smiling and moving from one corner of the room to another. But according to some who were there, things shifted the moment Tamar and Mendecees crossed paths. Witnesses quietly mentioned that Tamar's mood changed after that encounter. What was supposed to be just another casual conversation reportedly turned into something far more tense. No one could hear every single word exchanged, but those nearby could feel that something wasn't right. The energy around them had gone from light and playful to quiet and heavy almost instantly. What makes this moment even more suspicious is the way Tamar reacted afterwards. People noticed that she became distant, no longer her usual lively self. She wasn't as engaged in the event, and her smile seemed forced whenever someone tried to lighten her mood. Some say she even tried to excuse herself a few times, looking restless and distracted. For those paying attention, it was clear that the night had taken a turn for Tamar, and that something significant had happened during her interaction with Mendecees. Not long after Tamar and Mendecees exchanged words, whispers started moving through the room. People nearby couldn't help but notice the tension rising between them. What began as what seemed like a normal conversation quickly turned into something far more heated. According to a few individuals who claimed to have witnessed the exchange, Tamar's tone grew sharper, while Mendecees appeared defensive. Their voices weren't loud enough for everyone to hear the details, but the expressions on their faces said more than enough. Tamar looked visibly upset, her body language signaling frustration, while Mendecees tried to maintain composure but clearly wasn't able to calm the situation. Some who saw the moment believe harsh words were definitely spoken. Tamar's reaction was described as hurt and offended, as though something had been said that cut deeper than just casual banter. For someone like her, who is usually quick with a witty comeback, this time she didn't appear to be brushing it off lightly. Instead, she seemed shaken in a way that was unusual for her personality. On the other hand, Mendecees appeared more focused on ending the discussion than making peace, which only made the atmosphere feel heavier. The alleged confrontation lasted only a few minutes, but it was long enough for several attendees to notice. The whispers began spreading immediately, some claiming Tamar stormed off, others suggesting that she was fighting back tears. While no one could confirm the exact words exchanged, what became clear is that whatever was said had a lasting impact. It wasn't just a casual disagreement, it was something personal enough to linger in the air even after the conversation ended. As the night unfolded, what many had assumed would be nothing more than a casual interaction between Tamar and Mendecees turned into the center of attention for those close enough to witness it. At first, People saw Tamar greeting him with the kind of polite smile she gives almost everyone. But as the minutes passed, that polite smile began to fade. Her tone shifted, her hands moved as if she was trying to explain or defend something, and suddenly the space between them felt charged with unspoken tension. Several guests later recalled that Tamar's voice, although not loud enough to draw the entire room's focus, carried a sharpness that could not be ignored. Her facial expression tight, as if she was holding back emotions that were threatening to spill over. Mendecees, on the other hand, was visibly trying to keep calm, but even his composure slipped at moments. He leaned in closer, gesturing with his hands in a way that suggested he wanted to clarify his side of the story, yet Tamar didn't look convinced. Instead, she appeared to be retreating emotionally, her body leaning slightly away from him. Those who claimed to have caught parts of the conversation described Tamar as looking hurt, almost betrayed, as though Mendecees had said something deeply personal or dismissive. Witnesses mentioned words like disrespect and crossing the line being exchanged, though no one can confirm them with certainty. What is certain is that Tamar's eyes carried a mixture of anger and disappointment, and her energy no longer matched the playful social atmosphere she had entered the event with. For a woman known for her boldness and confidence, this moment stood out. Tamar wasn't throwing around her usual playful shade or witty comebacks. This was different. This felt raw, unfiltered, and real. Some guests said they saw her clutching her phone tightly, almost as though she was using it to ground herself in that tense moment. Others described her crossing her arms, a classic sign of shutting down emotionally when things get overwhelming. The confrontation didn't last long in terms of minutes, but in the eyes of those who saw it, it was long enough to leave Tamar visibly shaken. Even after the exchange seemed to end, she didn't immediately return to mingling. Instead, she kept her distance, her smile forced whenever someone tried to approach her. It was clear that whatever had been said between her and Mendecees was not something she could simply brush off. It lingered in her expression, in her silence, and in the way she carried herself for the rest of the night. After the tense exchange with Mendecees, it became obvious that Tamar was no longer comfortable staying at the event. People noticed the way she kept glancing toward the exit, her body restless, as if her mind was already somewhere else. Friends who tried to engage her in light conversation said she responded politely, but her energy was distant. She wasn't laughing the way she usually does. She wasn't making her presence felt the way Tamar is known to. She looked like she was carrying the weight of something that nobody else fully understood. As the night dragged on, it became clear that she had made up her mind. Witnesses described how Tamar quietly excused herself from a small group she had been sitting with, grabbed her bag, and walked toward the door without drawing too much attention. But despite her efforts to slip away quietly, people noticed. The once vibrant star who usually lit up a room was now walking out, her face guarded and her pace quick, almost as if she wanted to avoid running into anyone who might ask questions. Some say she was on the phone as she left, speaking in a low but firm tone, while others insist she had tears in her eyes but was trying to hide them behind her sunglasses. What everyone agrees on, however, is that her exit was sudden and unexpected. The event was far from over, yet Tamar decided she couldn't stay another minute. For someone who usually thrives in the spotlight, this kind of abrupt disappearance spoke volumes. The moment she walked out, speculation immediately began. Why had she left so quickly? Was it really just the argument with Mendecees, or was there something deeper that no one knew about? Guests whispered among themselves, trying to piece together what they had just witnessed. And by the time the night ended, word had already started spreading outside of the event that Tamar had left in a hurry after a clash that no one could fully explain. Her absence from the spotlight after that night only fueled the mystery even more. Tamar didn't post, didn't share, and didn't explain. She simply disappeared, leaving fans to wonder what had truly driven her away. The moment Tamar left the event, the story didn't just stay inside those four walls. By the next morning, fans and blogs had already picked up on the whispers, and social media was buzzing with speculation. Tamar's sudden disappearance, combined with her complete silence afterward, was too unusual to ignore. People who loved her and followed her every move began creating their own theories about what had actually happened that night with Mendecees. Some fans believed that Mendecees must have said something so personal and cutting that Tamar felt completely disrespected. They argued that the way she left so suddenly was proof that the situation had gone beyond a casual disagreement. Others felt it could have been a misunderstanding, something small that spiraled out of control because emotions were high. But then there were those who were convinced the issue wasn't about that night alone. It was something bigger, something that had been building up quietly and finally came to the surface. The blogs and media outlets only made things louder. Headlines popped up everywhere, painting different pictures of what might have gone down. Some claimed Tamar had been humiliated in front of her peers, while others suggested Mendecees wasn't even the real problem. Maybe Tamar was already going through something personal, and the confrontation was just the final push. Videos of Tamar's exit began circulating online, with people zooming in and slowing down her steps, trying to analyze her body language. As with most public figures, the silence only created more room for rumors. The more Tamar refused to address the situation, the more people filled in the blanks with their own ideas. Was Tamar hiding because she didn't want the truth to come out? Was she avoiding the cameras until she was emotionally ready to speak? Or was this simply her way of protecting her peace by shutting everything out until she felt grounded again? The questions were endless, and each day that passed without Tamar's voice only made the mystery deeper. Fans wanted answers, critics wanted clarity, and everyone was waiting to see who would speak first, Tamar or Mendecees. Just when it seemed like Tamar's silence would continue without explanation, bits and pieces of new information started to surface from people close to both sides. At first, it was nothing more than vague comments from insiders. But soon, those whispers began to form a clearer picture of what might have really happened that night. According to some voices in Tamar's circle, her sudden withdrawal wasn't only about the exchange with Mendecees. They claimed Tamar had been under intense pressure in her personal life leading up to that event. For her, the incident with Mendecees was less about a single argument and more like the last straw in a series of emotional battles she had been quietly fighting. These sources suggested that Tamar wasn't running away from the public eye out of weakness, but rather out of a desperate need to protect herself and give her mind some peace. On the other side, people close to Mendecees painted a very different picture. They insisted that he never intended for the conversation to escalate, and that his words had been misunderstood. Some even claimed that the confrontation had been exaggerated by onlookers, and that Mendecees himself was surprised at how quickly Tamar left afterward. To his camp, this was never meant to be a dramatic scene. It was just a tense moment that got blown out of proportion. But what really fueled the fire were those who hinted at something deeper, something no one had fully spoken about yet. These insiders hinted that Tamar and Mendecees might have shared more history than people realized, and that whatever was said that night wasn't random, it came from unresolved issues between them. Although no one was willing to say exactly what those issues were, the mere suggestion added another layer of mystery to the entire situation. With each new detail surfacing, the story grew more complicated. Fans didn't know who to believe: Tamar's circle, Mendecees' camp, or the bloggers who were spinning their own versions of the truth. What everyone did agree on, however, was that Tamar's sudden disappearance, combined with these new claims, meant there was far more to the story than anyone had imagined. As the days turned into weeks, Tamar's silence began to speak louder than any statement she could have given. Her social media, which was once full of updates, laughter, and little glimpses into her life, remained completely quiet. Fans who were used to hearing from her almost daily felt the absence immediately. For many, it was unsettling. Tamar had never been the type to simply disappear without leaving a trace. The lack of communication made people feel torn. Some fans sympathized deeply, saying she had every right to step back and protect her peace, especially if she was going through something difficult. They reminded others that celebrities, no matter how strong or confident they appear on the outside, are still human beings with limits. On the other hand, there were those who grew frustrated, demanding answers and wondering why Tamar would let the rumors spiral out of control without clearing the air. To them, her silence only fueled the idea that the situation was far more serious than anyone imagined. Meanwhile, Mendecees has continued to live his life more openly, though not without his own share of questions. Whenever his name comes up, people instantly tie it back to that night with Tamar, asking whether he plans to finally tell his side of the story. But so far, nothing concrete has come from him either, leaving the public with nothing but guesses, theories, and speculation. For Tamar, the current situation seems to be about creating distance. Those close to her suggest that she is focusing on her mental and emotional well-being, choosing